Hey guys, Steven Martinez with The American Dream. I just want to say a big thanks to all our supporters and fans. It's because of you guys that we're able to keep growing. Having said that, please don't forget to follow and subscribe. It means a lot to us. That's what helps us keep growing. And also, I hope you guys enjoy the next episode. Hey guys, welcome back to The American Dream podcast. I'm here with a very special guest, my brother, Ryan Groth, or Growth because you like to grow. Yeah. Also known as the sales athlete. Yeah. Good to see you, brother. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Well, let's dig into it, man. Let's start with, I guess, for you as a person, for anyone that doesn't know Ryan, starting from your childhood to where you are now, what brought you to the man and the business owner that you are today?
Yeah. Well, let's keep this about an hour, okay? So childhood. Mom and dad had me super young, so I was the oldest of a young romantic situation, and they're hard workers. My dad was a brilliant guy, helped get DirecTV, their concept actually to where it is today. He was a grinder though. He wasn't one of the executives, but he worked for DirecTV, and my mom worked for Howard Hughes Company, and my mom's family has some pretty cool history. And so, they were just in Southern California as a kid, living in kind of the hood, just trying to make it. And, we, unfortunately, they got divorced, and that was impactful for me. And so I came from that background, unfortunately. But fortunately, lived with my mom's parents, Christian missionaries. So they did all kinds of global stuff and got to be in their home, which created a lot of order and just light in my life as a kid. And it was awesome. And then my mom and dad kind of started to get healthy on their feet again, and my dad brought us into his world, and we lived with him from age 10 to 18. So he was he struggled in some areas. He was a great dad, but some of what I witnessed and some of the things that I saw, he's actually passed now. He died of an overdose. So I had addiction in my family.
Sorry.
And so that that could either take somebody one of two ways. They can continue to follow that path, or they can say, hey, that's been a good model of what not to do. I love all that was good, but what wasn't good, I'm gonna move away from that. So that was me. I chose a path of just leveling up and trying to what does success look like? What does a better family look like? So I always dreamt of finding success, being a helper of people, and impacting the world around me, and having a beautiful family. So I started on that journey, and it took me to being an athlete. So I loved athletics. I loved football and baseball. I love all sports, but baseball was the one that really seemed to be the best fit for me. So I went to a Division I school and played there, and then went to a junior college. Got drafted by the Pirates, and kind of leveraged that kind of year to a school in Tulsa, Oklahoma called Oral Roberts. Played there, got drafted again. Played with the Angels and signed with them and played a couple years. So I was a pro ball player, didn't make it to the big leagues, but still have friends that are playing in the big leagues, and that season of life marked me because of the hard work that it took to become that. I was like, man, the sold out focus, all in mentality that got me there, I realized was I don't want that gear to stop. That was for a reason. And so after baseball ended, I started to network with some, really quality individuals, and I was led to meeting a large commercial roofing contractor who just sold to private equity literally last week. They are currently doing about $80 million. It's all service and all re-roofing. They're one of the most premier businesses in the commercial roofing space in the country. And if you asked anybody who's been around for 30 years, he would be a top 5 kind of guy. So I got to be mentored by him because he had launched a CRM for his business and had outside sales training that with another firm. And as I started to sell the software locally, there was no customers. I was like, well, we need to focus on contracting because you're far advanced, and this adoption of technology is something that the industry's not doing. That's a big reason why you're so good. Mm-hmm. And he also was so rich with outside consulting and sales training that I was able to absorb all of that. And I would combine the need for sales improvement and improvement of their business with these best practices. And as I started to sell this service of coaching and consulting and training with the software, I started to kind of fall in love with that part of the business where my ability to solve problems and consult and guide and see the industry's bigger need was like, whoa, this is really, something's going on here. So after 4.5 years there, he and I ended on great terms. We had hired a person to run the software business, and that's where I kind of tapped into the network that we had built there and expanded into roofing and other trades around this company I started called Sales Transformation Group, because we want to transform people and businesses into sales organizations that happen to do whatever they're doing. And I felt that the industry of contracting didn't have a kind of nationwide standard, gold standard of how to build sales teams, how do salespeople get brought up, like what's the professional way to do it. And I just saw an opportunity, and that was in 2018. And so 6 years ago is when we started. We've helped close to 1,000 companies work with us in different, forms, and we're super blessed. And what I mentioned earlier about being a family man and everything, have 5 children now, been married for 13 years, so super proud of that. As we've started a couple companies, it's been crazy over the last decade, but love this industry, love the people here, and that's a little bit about the man I am and what formed me.
Beautiful. So let me ask you a quick question before we kind of talk into the sales side of stuff.
Yeah.
For the athletic side, right? You were pretty much a full-time athlete.
Yeah.
I played soccer too. I played 4 years in Europe, so I understand
wow.
that. Let's talk about the transition that people don't talk about. How was your transition from practicing every day, being disciplined, to kind of being out in the real world? Were you kind of depressed on that aspect of it, or?
Oh yeah, for sure. At first,
it's a thing, right?
Yeah, it's an identity crisis.
It is.
You're like, I'm Ryan, the baseball player, right?
Yeah.
I'm Ryan, the baseball player. Like,
yeah.
Who are you? I mean, I still talk about it. It's still part of my identity.
Yeah.
I'm even today still talking about it. But where I'm going with is when that's all you do, and your hope is that your future will be doing that a long time, and you'll have an income and a living, and you just don't know. But when you go all in, like, there's no plan B. You burn the ships. Like, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I didn't have like this wealthy background and all this stuff to fall on, and so although I think that's great, and I hope my kids can have that and they're able to be blessed, but it was an advantage for me because I'm like, I have to reinvent myself. And what I found though is that this engine, once it gets revved up, it ain't going to stop, right? It ain't stopping. Yeah. So like, where is it going to go? And I was looking at church ministry. I was looking at that a lot, and I didn't know what that was going to happen there. And that's still on my heart to do in my life. But like, I'm like, I am getting married. I don't have a way to make really good money. And then I started to get some mentorship, and when somebody that I saw be successful kind of say, dude, like, you should get into sales. You're a competitor, you're a great communicator. If I had one of my other companies, I'd met you, I'd hire you in a heartbeat. When I heard somebody that was further along in that game, baseball, I had a lot of mentors, right? But in the game of business and life, I had not had that yet. I was still building that. I was 24 years old, 25 years old, when I got that light bulb, and I was like, whoa, let's go, game on. Then when I realized in this game that it's all about how you show up, how you present, how you connect with people, how opportunistic you are. And as an athlete, I was constantly like evaluating my environment. Where am I going to go next? And I'm like, all of those muscles had somewhere to go, and it was in business and in sales. And I started to just fall in love with this game. And I feel very fortunate to have had kind of the people pointing me toward that, because I felt a bit like a lion that was like, go that way, and I just started to run,
I know what you mean.
And it feels great. But I see men and women and guys I've played with that still haven't kind of found that, and it's tough because I know what's inside of them. I feel fortunate though, some of my friends have crushed it too, so like, it's not like it's all I'm the only one that figured out that business can be an outlet. But we got to reinvent ourselves. And I think the last thing I'll say before we transition to anything else is our identities aren't in what we do. And when you have this ability to identify yourself outside of like the thing you're doing, as entrepreneurs who are trying to make it and trying to find success and trying to be successful and make it in this world, which there's a lot of pressures to be a certain thing in this world, you can make the thing you're doing so obsessive that that's all you are thinking about. And that certainly has happened to me in baseball, in baseball, of course, first, and then business and multiple businesses. But I think one's ability to identify yourself as, hey, my identity isn't this, it's this, and what this just happens to be a thing I'm doing, a project I'm in. you're able to navigate the emotions of things so much easier in transition and reinvent yourself and have a new thing, because it's like the death of you if the thing ends, right? It's like I started this company and now it failed, so I'm a failure, I'm a loser, I'm nothing. It's like, no, you're not, but we get sucked into that. So I think for people transitioning, you got to know this, like who you are is not the thing you just did or what you're doing today. It's just they're two different things, and that distinction allows somebody to rebound well and navigate well and not let the emotional roller coaster drag you in and out of places in life.
I agree. Sometimes we could be like a blind horse in a race, right? Because we're so focused on that finish line. But then, once you take those blindfolds off, you'll see everything. You'll see the other horses, the crowd. What I'm trying to say is that in that aspect of transitioning, sometimes we lose identity. You're 100% right. That kind of happened to me. But then you realize there's a bigger calling out there, something that we weren't aware of. We were just that horse in the race, just trying to go to the finish line. Yeah. And then God tells you, hey, you're going to be able to, in this case, help people out with sales, be able to make more money, support their family, help out, future generations, their kids' kids. So I think sometimes people, just in general, doesn't even have to be sports, but I think we can connect with sports because you're an athlete as well. But just any hobby that you were really like digging into and so passionate about and it didn't work out, it sucks sometimes, right? You kind of get depressed. You're like, man, totally. So I think it's important for people that are listening too, that just because something doesn't work out doesn't necessarily mean that was the end goal, right?
Yeah, and I'll say one more thing about that. Like, part of what made this, you mentioned calling, and I love that. Like, my mom remarried after my mom and dad divorced. She remarried when I was 12. So I'm still like, I meet this new man who's kind of like another father, right? I'm 12 years old.
Yeah.
They started contracting business together. And they had a sign business, and they had like these big production home building companies as their customers. They would do all the signs that says like, hey, new development going on. And then they had a home remodeling business. So in the summer times, I was help dig post holes, put the signs in, and then I'd go and do another project and do a roof or do tap cons and inside the concrete, and I would like help build a home. And so I'm like exposed to this blue collar world as second generation, and anybody who's in second generation is like, okay, I'm going to learn it, but if I'm going to take over this company, I'm going to take all the things I don't like about it, and I'm going to build it up, right? Yeah. That was me saying, plan A is baseball, plan B is I'll come back to do this. Well, guess what? In the middle of my baseball career, they get divorced. 2008 happens, recession happens. They go bankrupt. Their business folds. So I'm like, part of my motivation is, dude, it sucks being on the other end of a family who doesn't make it in business. So what I'm trying to say is families and lives and children are affected by someone's inability to navigate their business, because financial pressure is real, and financial bankruptcy is real, and debt is real. And if people don't have the skills or the tools or the coaching and the resources or the wherewithal to navigate that, A, they may not make it, which happened for me. And then B, if they do cross that chasm, they can create legacy and generational wealth and influence and mentorship and all these beautiful things, right? So for me, when baseball was over, I was like, you mentioned this call, like I was in Illinois in this like middle of nowhere hotel, and I felt like God spoke to me and he said, son, he gave me this vision. Have you ever heard of hanging up the spikes? You ever heard of that term? Like hanging up the spikes?
Yeah, hanging up the cleats,
It's like hanging up the cleats, So baseball, it's spikes.
Okay.
Hanging up the cleats. Yeah. I just saw this vision of a locker, and I saw me hanging up the spikes. Wow. And he said, son, I have something bigger and better for you. And I was like, okay, what's next, God? And that's when I started taking those steps, and I realized like even my story of brokenness with my parents and my family and all that ties into why I want to do this, because I want to see families, communities, children, all that work out well. And so many times, succession plans don't work. So many times, transitions aren't successful with the next generation. So many times divorces happen in the middle of business because the pressures are so intense. And I'm like, does it have to be like that? I hope not. And so that's part of the calling you mentioned. And I think having a relationship with God and knowing that like there's a bigger picture really helps us navigate these changes in life way more than we would on our own, for sure.
So when you started the sales transformation group, correct? How was that in terms of, because let's be honest, no business is right? You got your ups and downs. How was the, I guess, transition to in terms of creating what you created now? Was there a moment where you're like, man, I don't think this is going to work out, or you know, you kind of hit a hole?
We came out of the gates swinging. So we had a hockey stick growth for the first 4 years. The last couple years, as I've taken some big risks and bets and making some big aggressive moves, because when you start to come out swinging, like, you get a little arrogant, I think, and I definitely did. Like, I was like, I can't lose, like, we're crushing it, you know. But I started to get humbled, man, and I started to feel the reality of, like, when you turn right, like, what can happen if you stay down that right turn too long. And so all good, not a victim of anything, like, no one's fault, my fault, like, it's just part of the journey. But I thought that I wasn't maybe going to make it even more recently than when I started, because when I started, I had so much momentum from the CRM relationships. I was crushing it, like, out in the field doing installs. It was just me, so every lead, every sale, everything went through me. So I had a lot of relational networking, like, value, and then I started to kind of get because of all the training and sales and kickoffs, I had, like, a skill set to deliver training and content and coach well, and I had so many insights. So I just started to make phone calls with old customers and say, hey, if I started something, which I think I'm going to do, would you be interested in hiring me to do this and this? They're like, totally. So I started, like, within 30 days, I had like 25, 30K a month of income. So I was like, that was more than I was making before. And so and my wife, so we came out swinging, and there's a lot, I don't want to go into all the numbers, but we grew a lot. And then when you grow a lot, just like honestly, bro, like, let's be real. How many roofers come out, have a good couple of years, and they spend all their money? Right?
Yeah, I think it's an ego thing too.
I did that. And I'm totally, like, being vulnerable here. I totally did, like, I struggled. I had to face my own demon of ego and, like,
you're young and the money.
I never had money before. My parents didn't have money. You know what I mean? Like, it was new. Like, I never made anything north of, like, $8,000 in a month, you know? So when I started to make more, I started to do things that I didn't do before, right? So it's normal. I didn't have a plan to make that kind of money. I mean, I paid my taxes, I managed my cash well, but all those excess funds was, like, almost like Christmas, right? So kind of had to work through that, you know, and now my wife and I have some more wisdom, and we're like, hey, this is how we need to live. Super simple, frugal. This is the plan for the rest of the money. Plus, I've taken on investment at our company, so we have shareholders, and I have a fiduciary responsibility too. So it's not my company by itself. I have a responsibility to issue a return to people who've bought into what our vision is. So anyway, that's a lot there, but so for sure. First year came out swinging, a lot of growth, and then but, you know, someone was recently talking with, they were like, that's first 7 years, like, if you can make it through 7, 8 years, man, you for sure have had a fire and a valley you've crawled out of in that time period that will legitimize what you're doing, right? And so I think we're almost there. We're getting there.
So in terms of, I guess, what you do with the sales transformation group, for anyone, you know, that's young, driven, motivated, or anyone that wants to be an entrepreneur or business owner, how important would you say it is to have some sort of experience in sales? Do you need to be in sales first before you start a business, from your experience? What do you think? I
mean, I'm not going to limit anybody, but if you don't know how to sell, like, I could promise you any entrepreneur, if we interviewed 10 of them, 100 of them, 9 or 95% of them are going to say one of the top 2 or 3 things that you need to be able to do is sell. So I think if you don't know how to sell, you're really missing it. Obviously, product needs to be phenomenal. Whatever you're delivering, you need to do a great job with. But there are people out there that have a killer product or a killer service. They do contracting better than anybody else, but their business is still $1 million a year, right? Or, you know what I mean? It could be a technology company. So I think sales is so important, and I think that when you tie just, hey, part of who I am, part of what my mission is, part of what my big calling is to help people, and helping people looks like shouting from the rooftops and building relationships and having something that you're really sure about. It projects the certainty and the confidence that people need to hear to be able to say yes to the thing that you're doing. And I think it's a deep well and a deep foundation that needs to be certain about where you're going. And then, because when one thing about me was like, I didn't want to just sell to sell. I'm like, this is my integrity. This is my human. This is who I am. I'm not just going to go represent myself and use a gift of voice and communication and shake hands unless I'm like fully on board. So I had to be convinced about whatever it is I'm selling I'm all in. Like I sold like this school product. I was an admissions rep for a year selling like independent, non-accredited school training programs to like low economic area people, like trying to get them to take out loans and all these different things to get a degree that hopefully they could achieve a personal success. And I was like, I didn't love it. I was like, this isn't great. I didn't sell it where I could sell hard, where I could sell to my grandmother. Like, I want to sell to my grandmother. I want to passionately like love what I'm doing. And I think that's important. And I think that you need to have that there if you're going to go. But where I'm going with this is, if you're an entrepreneur and you're a founder and you never sold before, if you've gotten people to become your friend, you've gotten people to become somebody to become your spouse, you've gotten people to sign up to say, I want to mentor you and I want to pour into you. You've gotten people to tag you and subscribe to anything you're doing. You are selling. Because selling is influence and getting people to change something. And just help them understand that whatever they're doing with you is going to get them a different outcome. So I think that whenever your whole heart can get behind the thing you're selling, you can learn the specifics of selling. You can learn the art and the science of it. You can start to implement systems and processes, and then you can learn. But I think experience is huge. Like if you can say, hey, I've recruited in the military and got 700 people to join. You're a sales guy, right? If I was a college coach and I recruited X amount of people and we went from this to this, well, you're a sales guy, right? If I, you know what I mean? Like you're like influencing people. So if I was the class, king of prom king, you got everybody to think you're cool. Like everybody wanted to vote for you. Like you're obviously good at getting people to do stuff. Yeah. So I think that sales is obviously, there's an art and a science of it and there's books on it. But at the end of the day, if you're sold on yourself or whatever you're believing enough, where people are saying, oh yeah, I'm all in, I'm in on that, whatever that looks like, you have the makings of becoming somebody who can be super successful at sales.
So how important would you say it is to, before you sell a product or service, they buy you, like you sell yourself? Would you agree to that?
Yeah, very important. Yeah, for sure. Because if you are somebody that they trust and like and they respect and they're like, man, that representation, I believe in what they're saying, you can't get somebody to believe in what you're saying unless you believe in what you're saying. Right, so that's where conviction and certainty comes from your heart and out of your mouth, and it starts there. So, yeah.
So for sales is such an interesting topic. I love sales because I think sales and marketing kind of go hand on hand, right? And then sales is almost like the art of reading people from a philosophy, right, standpoint. So you can't, maybe I'm wrong, you're the expert, but for example, like let's say your average car salesman, right? They're very like direct, aggressive. I don't think that works for everyone. I think the art of the sale, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's reading the person and then being able to portray your message specifically to how they want. Like for example, if you're trying to sell me, I'm not a same day type of guy that will close. I don't like people being pushy. I don't like people trying to sell me like straight away. Maybe let me sleep on it, follow up. In terms of the strategies of sales, would you say there's a specific way to sell someone, or or do you have to be versatile?
So I think that if you understand a couple core concepts of what sales is and defining sales, it's going to make this so much easier. So like basically sales is the art and science of being able to get somebody who has a current agitated state. So there's a current state, it's agitated, they're feeling a certain kind of way about their situation. If you can understand that, and that's provoked and agitated in the sales process, whether through questions and them sharing their agitation and frustration, or you kind of asking deeper questions that kind of get it really like, all right, it's got to do something, right? And then there's a clearly defined desired state that moves them away from this agitation, or it moves them toward a fulfilled desire, right? So selling a pool is going to be a little different than selling a roof, right? Or selling a marketing system, or selling them on an equity, equity play, or whatever the thing that you're selling, right? There's an agitated state and then there's a desired state. If our marketing can help, and our marketing and our sales message can get a human being to feel that agitated state and then see and feel that the desired state is something that you understand, and there's a path to that, the person who understands it, hopefully there's a belief that they have the path. And if they have the path and they believe that path will work, they can get somebody to buy. So in sales, it's getting this agitated state, and then this desired outcome state, dream state, on the table where everyone's like, oh yeah, we're on the same page. And then there's a pathway. Then guess what? I like to say this: if you can help create this angle and this angle, it's like a frame, right? And if we're having this frame, if we create this frame, who's in the picture? The person on the other side, the one that's has extracted and helped structure that frame. So if we're like, let's just say American Dream Conference, you guys started out in the Latino market, right? You're speaking to that Latin American budding entrepreneur, existing business owner, and they know that you know them. They know that you know how they feel, what it's like being somebody that's first generation in this country, how it's hard. They know what it feels like that, one day like they've been the sub for everybody and and now they're like, hey, what about you being the person that sells the jobs, you having the brand, you having the team, and you having your own crews versus working for another roofer or whatever, right? And they're like, wow, you understand. Well, I have a path to help you get there, right? It's going to be whatever. That's how people get sold and influence to change. So if our marketing message creates contrast and polarity, our sales message has the ability for someone to help, they know that we understand their polarity, that message can just, as the bones of it, just kind of sprinkle on more design, more pretty things, more eloquence, more proof, more case studies over and over time. That's when you have someone who's dialed in, right? And they can just they can crush. And so that's where experience is valuable, because it's kind of building that framework in a person, in a sales and marketing individual, over time, so well, consistently, that over time you have a case study, you have an experience, you have a this, you have a that, you have an ideal client, a dream client, a blue chip client who is in this, and then you can sprinkle that in, and then over and over, and all of a sudden you got this, it's like this locomotive that can't stop.
Yeah, I like to think of it, whenever I give an example similar to that, probably not the best example, but I think younger people kind of understand it. It's like when you go to a bar, right, and you see the pretty girl, you want to talk to the pretty girl, before you get that one yes, you have to go through 100 no's, but those 100 no's, well, adapt and change, modify how to approach the person before you get that yes. Same analogy can be used in sales, right?
Yeah.
I think sometimes people don't understand, when it's too much, like the push and pull. Maybe I'm too aggressive. Maybe the client doesn't, maybe he wants to do it, but like on his own time. Having said that, from your expertise, and I'm just kind of curious here, from the sales perspective, right? You created the funnel, the frame, they see the value, 100%. Now, how important is the follow-up?
Well, I'm a big believer in, certainly if somebody has a stall or think it over, that we're physically there for it. Okay. A lot of times, the reason I say that is a lot of people email their proposals to people, right? Yeah. And then they present and they they don't even ask for the close, for one, and they emailed it. So let's just assume that you're in person and present for your delivery of that proposal, and you ask for the close, okay? Yeah. Those are two big things that some people don't even do, right? So let's just pretend you do that. And then there is a think it over, and there is a next step, or there is a stall. Then our job is to, I like to call it the ACCSC. So we acknowledge whatever that is. We ask permission to ask a clarifying question. And then we have a conversation about the consequence of not doing that in a timely fashion or now, right? And then if that consequence starts to feel like they feel that consequence, and it's like, man, I can move, then you can overcome that, no problem, and you can sell them again on moving forward and close them again. So you could solve that problem. But If you do that and you've isolated one or two objections, and they're like, yeah, it's price or it's timing, right? And you isolate those and you do that consequential conversation and they still aren't ready to move, then you're in a position where they're going to feel buyer's remorse or something. So
explain that, buyer's remorse.
Well, somebody that feels like they got sold in the moment emotionally.
Oh, got took advantage of.
They got taken advantage of,
Got it.
Which is hilarious, but that somebody would say that. But where I'm going with this is if there's not a close, we're huge on. I'd rather have a no in 2 weeks than a think it over and I'm following up with you forever, right? So I'm all about what's the clear and mutually agreed upon next step. So what that looks like is after we've overcome objections and we've essentially did our best to kind of isolate that and readdress it, what we're going to do is we're going to set up a next step for a decision to be made. There need to be another decision maker that wasn't there. That's probably part of the issue that you can kind of orchestrate another meeting to re-engage that. That's an issue that comes up a lot. I mean, we sell to owners, so we often have a multi-step close in what we do. One call closes are great, but that usually happens if they've referred and they've seen us multiple times and they're really warm and somebody already spoke with somebody and they're like ready to sign, right? That's not common, and that's what a lot of people build their business on, but you're going to be very small if you do that. Or you're just a freaking amazing savage or whatever you do, and you're just that good, but most people need to be able to close deals. So where I'm going with that is a clear and mutually agreed upon next step is, okay, so let's have a calendar, get our calendars out, set up a next step meeting in which we will review, again, your decision, right? So essentially, we're expecting a decision. The prospect knows the salesperson's expecting a decision, and a no is completely okay. And but if they have some reasons that we can address that ultimately helps them get the outcomes they want and what they've shared with us before we presented, then we're going to sell pretty hard until it just makes no sense. And there may be a timing thing, but what you don't want to do, especially if you're in the B2B long-term business type of sale, you don't want to sell too hard because then you could break the relationship permanently, and your reputation is what's going to support your growth ongoing. So it's a fine balance for sure. Yeah.
So in sales, we have physical, right, face to face. You have your phone call, your text, your email. In your opinion, from all those different types of concepts of sales, what's the most efficient way to convert?
I mean, efficient is a good question. I mean, say in person's always going to win, especially if that person is good, right? In person is always going to win because what they're doing is they're asking the question, do I believe that this person is going to help me get this outcome? And when you're in person, the trust, the respect, the engagement has opportunity to increase so much more because their world is blocked, right? Everything else, if you're in person, like you and me right now, we're together, we're not somewhere else. We're completely here.
Yep.
So you and I are getting sold on each other right now because we have complete presence of mind. A text, I can look at it, read it, delete it. I can not think about it. A Facebook post, I can think about it. But this is the best way. But a text, an email, a visual, an ad, all that just adds to this moment. But if you're really effective at all these things and the people you are in person with that you are marketing to or people are seeing through these other mediums are getting the same results that prospects are seeing, that's going to build more trust faster in where they're at. But what's cool is like when you're so good at all these other things, it just makes your in-person time that much more precious, that much more valuable. And that's why when people get so successful, it's hard to get them in person, or it's a special privilege because they have so much leverage everywhere else that the in-person is so important. But then that in-person ends up becoming more highly leveraged in the digital and the text. So my thoughts are be everywhere, but when you're physically in person, be places that are going to, from a business standpoint, really move you along everywhere else because of the potential of marketing that opportunity.
So if someone, let's say I started my own business, I'm 21, I have an idea, I have a concept, marketing, product and service is good, However, I'm getting no's and I'm introverted. How important would you say confidence is in the game of sales?
Super important, yeah. And confidence comes from experience. It comes from overcoming, building that muscle, and overcoming rejection, and then getting the win after having been having received the rejection. So I think confidence is super important. If 5 people tell you you're not going to make it, but you decide you can, and then one other person believes in you, grandma believes in you, mom and dad believe in you, like that's all that it takes, because eventually people will believe in you. And a lot of people are going to just wait and see, or just let's wait and see. It's okay. Like, it doesn't mean that they're haters. It just means that they just want to see. I've had people that have been one of the most powerful relationships. I didn't even approach them, nor did I ask them until like I knew I was demonstrating consistency long enough that I knew they were watching, right? And then as long as we consistently delivered, then I approached, but it was built off such a investment of value, right? So confidence is great, but at the end of the day, confidence can't be relied on other people. But you don't want to be that guy who's like a lone wolf, so I'll bet on me only, right? And then you just feel like you're that guy where it's like you don't have a support system. So don't be that guy who just, I'll bet on me, and then when somebody rejects you, you're like, you get this, like there's like this chip on. Don't be that guy either. So be the person that's like, I know who I am, I got my people, they're in my corner, I have my mentors, they're precious to me, I hear what they say, and then as that core support system is strengthening you, you'll get more fans over time that want to believe in you and are on your team. And just don't be aggressive when people don't. People are competitive, and I can have been that way, but it looks worse when you like call out or express on Facebook that people don't believe in you. You look worse than you could have by just saying nothing and then just keeping your head down and like loving on people, and doing your best. So
that's a good topic too. So for social media, how important is it to leverage that to your benefit? I think you and I do a pretty decent job on leveraging social media.
Try to. Yeah. There's guys that are doing a way better job than me for sure.
No, you do great, man.
Thanks, man. Trying. It's a lot. I got like small following compared to a lot of these guys, but who cares? It's go ahead, finish.
No, I guess my question really was like, for someone that has social media and they want to brand themselves or their company, how important is it to really deliver the right stuff, not talk about, silly things on social media, stuff like that?
You gotta be super careful what you're saying, because it hits 1 million people at once, depending on how many people you have follow you, right? Facebook's got 5,000 limit, and then if other people can see your stuff, if other people like and comment on your stuff, LinkedIn's like up to 30,000. I don't have that. I have like 15,000 or 12,000 or something. And then Instagram is obviously different. It's unlimited. And then TikTok, I don't have it. I can't handle another platform. It's too many things to manage. So where I'm going with this is, it's super important. I think it's very important. It is like I actually don't like it, because then what you find when you start to look at social media is annoying. It distracts me from things that are more important than other things I want to spend time with. But you got to use it, man. And I think a few things jump out, like what's your profile picture look like? What kind of content are you putting out there? How is it being put out? How frequently is it being put out? These are all very important things. So it depends on what you're trying to do. I think what I found the most powerful leverage point is when I'm with people and I share that I'm with them and they tag each other and we promote the people we're with. I think that's been powerful, because it sends a message to the world that the people I'm with, I agree, I sign up for, and they're signing up for me. And so whoever they are, and then how you're positioning, are you a fanboy of that person? Are you a peer? Are you mentoring them? What is the relationship, right? So I always try to be thoughtful of all those relationships, how I'm presenting them. I use business is my motive for social media primarily. I have a shared account my wife and I look at, and we look at everything but business. It's like very personal, but business, I'm like, all right, Instagram, the sales athlete, business, LinkedIn, business, Facebook, business. But I do sprinkle in personal things to show the world that I'm human, what I like, what I love, what I'm into, what my family's like, you know, what I'm up to. And it does create trust and likability, because I do know I have a responsibility as a leader to help people lead a better life. So whatever I can do to kind of inspire that is helpful. But yeah, like anytime that I have a customer who, especially a customer with a good brand, has something good to say, or an event or something that someone's worked hard to put an event on, or, you know, like what you're doing, you're working hard to put this together. For me to be featured is a blessing. Like, and so I'm saying yes to that. I want to be featured on that. And then it creates this appearance, and some of it's very true, but it's like you're everywhere. You're all, you know, and it's not just you're everywhere, other people are vouching for you. And so if you have customers and partners and industry things, whatever you're at, vouching for you, it creates a massive amount of credibility. So if you're speaking at an event or speaking with a big partner, it's important that, or you're on a podcast, it's important that the world sees that for your business, because it checks a box of credibility for those following the thing that you're partnered with. It says you are there. Like I was just at an event with a software company, and this other industry guy, contractor in another industry, showed me a text he sent his coach and said, hey, this says coach is here, da 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 da. It's basically, he's like, where do I sign? Because that company that they're subscribed to had us there. So the fact that we were there, the other company, who's, you know, big software company, their user has so much trust in them that we were very easy conversation to start. Whereas a complete stranger, what you don't want to do is be the solo guy, where you're always alone. Like I see these little internet marketers, right? These like this like random dude from another country trying to like get into roofing with marketing, and all they're showing is themselves. Or they're just talking from their own soapbox. You're gonna have a lot of issues there. As soon as you're showing collaboration, boom. It's just like, whoa. It creates credibility in everybody's minds. And it's real credibility, but there's a lot that happens there.
I agree 100%. I had so like I guess in our case, when it comes to credibility, you know, it's something it takes work and time, because you start to build that foundation. And for anyone that would watch and say, well, I don't know anyone yet, I could give you a perfect example. My editor, he's in high school, or just graduated from high school actually. You know how you get all those messages like, hey, let me edit your stuff, they're trying to sell you or marketing, whatever. So his was different. He's like, let me work for you for a week for free.
Nice.
Send me the stuff. If you like it, let's work together. So I think that's also a key kind of element, where if someone wants to validate themselves and, you know, kind of take themselves to the next level, providing value, even if it's free for a week, it'll go a long way. And that's something what I did too when I left Arizona. So I lived in Scottsdale for 2 years, kind of the same story as yours. It's crazy. So I was director of sales. I had relationships. There weren't clients. There were friends like Tommy, Chris, a few more to name. Anyways, I came back, and then I was like, well, what's one thing that people need in this industry? Sales. So I had a recruiting company, and my ex at the time, she would call people LinkedIn, Indeed, ZipRecruiter, get them all qualified, do the phone call, Zoom call, and then boom, we'll show them like 4 or 5 people, right? Having said that, I wanted to transition from the recruiting, because I didn't want to do recruiting. It sucks. I wanted to do more of a consulting marketing stuff to kind of give myself more of a reputable brand, right? So it's not Steven the recruiter, it's Steven the consultant, Steven the guy that can help you with marketing, this and that. So I went to Paul, MPC Construction. I was like, Paul, let me do a free analysis on everything. We'll look at your branding, you know, simple stuff from your SEO, your pay-per-click, your website, your design. Let me look at your contracts, your forms, your admin, your PR, everything. Okay. Did it for free, and he was like, dude, this is good. And I was like, just give me a testimonial.
Right.
And then that's when I transitioned from this and then to the book. And then I was like, well, now let me do what I'm doing, but do it to the Latino market.
Yeah.
So I guess my key there to that story is, what would you say for someone that's kind of, you know, they start something but they're lost? How would you guide that person in whatever they're trying to do?
So, I mean, obviously I'd want to dig into their situation, but like if they start something, don't stop. Okay, start and don't stop. The more energy you put into it, the more other people's energy that gets put into it, the more focused you are on it, the more it's going to not just start, but continue to go. Momentum is not free, bro. It costs something. Like you have to pay a price to get momentum. So when you have momentum, keep the momentum. And when you lose momentum, you have to get it back going again. So my advice is when you start something, don't stop. And that goes for anything. It can go for key relationships, somebody you want to get married to, right? It could be, anything. If you start, don't stop, and just be a relentless nut job at times, and just keep going, because the momentum will pick up steam. And what's really cool is eventually the thing won't need your shoulder every moment of every second of every day. You actually can have enough momentum, or enough other people want to put their shoulders into it, and then you can be able to look up and say, all right, where's this rock being rolled to now? Okay, we're gonna go that way, right? Yeah. And you actually can kind of steer things, right? So.
And then in terms of business, you mentioned marriage a few times. How important was your wife, and I guess a transcourse of where you are now? Is she a big element?
Huge. I mean, well, I'll tell you this, my family, I don't want to lose it. I don't want to be on the other side of the statistic of divorce, right? I want to be the right side of the statistic. I'd like to see that statistic change for the better.
It's pretty high, right? Super
high. I mean, it's 50% or something. Yeah. Even on religious Christian circles, it's super high. It's bad. It's bad. So where I'm going with this is, if you aren't unified with your spouse and you're not on the same page, you have a decision to make. Am I going to find somebody else to be unified to, and just find a new person that wants to do what I want to do, especially with the business? Or am I going to change my life and support my marital commitment? I chose that, although the business can take every ounce of me because I love it, the business, I chose that I would rather make my family the first priority, as hard as that is to do when you love. It's easy if you love your family and don't care about the business. But if you're a real entrepreneur, you know how hard it is to step away from the business. That thing is a baby that needs every ounce of you, and you want it to be successful. It's not a bad thing. But something at some point it will take over your life if you will not see your kids. You're trying to remember their middle name.
When's your birthday?
So you know what I mean. So what I'm going with this is, if you don't have unity with your spouse as you're building your business, you want their support. You don't want them to be. You don't want their remorse. You want their support, not their remorse. You don't want them sad about your business. You want them happy, right? How do you do that? You unify with your spouse. You submit to her and she submits to you, or you submit to him and he submits to you. You submit your lives unto one another. You give it to God and you say, God, we are giving our marriage to you. We know that if this is number one, everything else will fall into place. And if you actually do that, you realize that you can be more efficient with your time, or you can swing and open a bigger door than you would have opened before. And God works it all out in amazing ways. But if you don't trust that, and you have to focus on your business all the time, then your spouse will start to feel like a hindrance to your thing. And that's if you're there, come on, bro, take a second to get your priorities in order. Do you want to be the wrong side of statistic? I don't. So I love to win. I'm competitive, all those things, but it's not who we're fully destined to be. It's not our best, right? Our best is families, not just together, but thriving, and they're like great representatives of you. Think about it this way: if your leadership team and your employees misrepresent you in your business, it kind of bothers you, right? For sure. Well, what if your family is out there misrepresenting who you are? They're doing things you don't want them to do, right? Their spouse or your children are growing up to be somebody. That is like the true reflection of a person. My oldest is 10, my youngest is 15 months. I got 5 kids. If in 15, 20 years you're looking at me and you meet my kids, and my kids are like beautiful, brilliant citizens that represent me, then you're gonna be like, he is legit. Right now, you don't know. You have to go meet him and really see. But if my kid's a turd and he's entitled, spoiled, selfish, all these things, but my business is great, then look, I may have a great business, but you're not looking at that part of me saying you're a stud, you killed it. You're gonna say, interesting, I think it's important for us to have all of it, because I've seen entrepreneurs in which their children are a shame and embarrassment to them, and it's like the bane of their existence. Well, whose fault is that? It's the one who was raising them, right? So you got to end up looking back and saying, this is some heavy stuff I'm saying, but there's a reality to this. What do you want? Do you want to be married, and do you want your kids to represent you well? while you're building your business, because I could tell you that that's going to be, your employees may not be there when you're on your deathbed. Your kids, you hopefully are, right? And those are just things we got to think about. And it's not easy to try to conquer all these things well, but it's possible. And with God, you can do it, right? So if you don't have that and your spouse and you are struggling and all these things, I can also tell you that your employees, when you're owner of a business or you're a leader of a business, your employees look at you, not just at your skills, but they look at you. They're like, am I wanting to spend my time learning from this human being? And if this human being they have a beautiful family and you just love what they represent, it's going to create a deeper connection with those teammates, and they're going to want to continue to follow you through the end because they're seeing the fruit of your life. But if you're following somebody who's leading a life that you don't want to follow, you're having to constantly decipher between what you want to listen to and what you don't. How much easier is it to just follow somebody that most of what they do you're dialed into, right? It's so much easier to go deeper versus, let me think about this. I don't know, I got to filter through that. Or they asked me to go out. Do I want to go out with them and have a dinner? Or is it going to turn into a zoo, like a total like mess? Yeah. What am I, you're always having to think about this stuff. And that creates friction in the followers of the people that you're leading. I don't want that. I want clean, clear, here's where we're going, feeling good, sleeping like a baby at night, tap dancing to work, tap dancing into your weekend with your family, and tap dancing to work on Monday. Like, that's what I want, right? Lead your life in such a way where the credibility is consistent.
For anyone watching, what would be kind of like your final words or your last message to them in regards to what you want to tell them?
I'd say this, trust God, don't quit. You're in process. You're never going to stop growing and changing. Trust God and don't quit. If you quit, you quit. It's done. But when you're at your lows and at your highs, still trust God. Don't get arrogant. Don't think you're the best thing since sliced bread. Don't start to take credit for everything. As soon as you take credit for everything, you take the credit from God, you put it onto you, He will humble you, and you will be on your face crying out to Him again. Give Him the thanks, honor Him with all you do. You have a privilege and an opportunity to steward something special. Don't be that guy that people are like, man, it's one of those guys. He's such a piece of work. Like, be the guy that are like, every vendor wants your business. Every vendor wants to work with you. Every teammate wants to work with you. And they're like, this person is phenomenal. Be a phenomenal person. Trust God. Don't be humble, and don't quit.
Beautiful, brother. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in at the American Dream Podcast. I'll see you guys in the next one.